All right, YouTube. This Detroit's HPTV come to you out of Detroit early Saturday morning. I want to do a follow up on the topic of Trump, JD Vance, and Zelenskyy. Now, there's mixed feelings in America about how that situation went. And if you are an observer who's not biased, you could clearly see that Zelenskyy has a very high level of disrespect for Trump. He doesn't respect Trump. The reason he doesn't respect Trump is because of the propaganda that he listens to in American media from him listening to the Biden administration. So he felt he didn't have to be respectful. You know, he come in there with his outfit on like he just left the trenches. But if people understand what's really going on in these politics, Zelenskyy is barely ever in his own country while the slaughter is going on. Zelenskyy knows in his mind, and the world knows, that they cannot defeat Russia. See, the American propaganda will have you think that Russia is not a serious power broker. But let me tell you something about Russia. And you can go all the way back to the Bolshevik Party, Lenin, Stalin. You can go all the way back to World War II. And you can think that America defeated Germany or England or France. None of them defeated Germany. None of them defeated Hitler. Hitler was kicking their back end. Hitler was consistently bombing England, had ran up in France. But what stopped Hitler was Russia. Russia stopped him in the snow and made a deal with the United States to let them go into Germany when Germany finally collapsed. And they became partners until the Cold War. Now, you got this man Zelenskyy. If you know anything about him, he is the one that is tyrannical. Do you know he will not even allow elections in this country? Do you know that they're taking old men, young men, young men with mental illness and putting them on the front line? All the money that they're using to fund this war, $350 billion for a war that it's impossible for Zelenskyy to win without Europe and the United States. But they want to keep it going because Europe is the one who wants to collapse Russia. Russia is a superpower. China is a superpower. England, France are not. So they feel as if the Russians are their enemy. And in this country, a lot of you have been led by media to think that Russia is your enemy. To my community, the Black community, what has a Russian ever did to you? What has a Russian ever did to you? Who told you that Russia was your enemy? The same people who had been telling you that Trump was your enemy, but as long as Trump was a Democrat, he was fine. They loved him. You're being manipulated. And what makes it bad is they have their constituents talking treasonous, talking like traitors, Benedict Arnolds, Judas, against their own neighbors, their own country. Trump won the popular vote, the electoral vote, the House, the Senate. He is a duly elected president of the United States. The Democrats know that they are advising their constituents to be subversive. They are advising their constituents to be seditious. They are advising their citizens to be enemies of the state. Because their rhetoric is provocative. But what if something really does happen in America has to put soldiers on a battlefield with the Democrats at home siding with foreign nationals against their own countrymen. Jasmine Crockett went on the Breakfast Club and said she's rooting for the cartel over the United States government. Ayanna Pressley says she wants to censor the American people. These Democrats want to keep the grift going. They don't want to be exposed for all the theft and fraud and abuses that they did with the American people's taxpayers' money. They got rich while the people starved. And they're mad and angry that Trump is exposing all this. So now they want to side with Zelenskyy. Zelenskyy is throwing his whole country under the bus. He knows there's no way he can defeat Russia. He knows it. But he's willing to keep fighting to the last man and then play on the sympathy and pity of the rest of the world. He wants to say it's a humanitarian crisis at this point. We need help. They're slaughtering us. Somebody come save us. When he can save himself. Agreeing to the peace treaty. He knows that the American people have been brainwashed into believing that there was no cause for Russia to come into Ukraine. As I told you before, he wanted to allow NATO to put bases and soldiers and a military on Russia's border. With Russia knowing that the Europeans want his power and his country collapsed. But you don't see it that way because these Democrats and these liberals, they keep you so emotional that you're willing to go against your own country. Well, guess what? Ukraine is accepting soldiers and help from all over the world. All you people that's posting that you stand with Zelenskyy, they're paying for the trips for you to go over there and fight. They're paying. You can get a free trip to Ukraine and you can go over there and you can help Zelenskyy if that's what you want to do. But as usual, the left is just pontificating. They're bluffing. The new face of the Democratic Party, Jasmine Crockett, told you that no Democrat was going to vote in favor of no taxes on tips, no taxes on overtime. All the Democrats voted against it. And it still passed. Every time they get in front of you and they talk as if they can be some type of force to change the agenda that the American people voted for, they're lying to you. They're misleading you. They're continuing to grift. They're continuing to ask for your support and donations so that they can become richer because they are definitely powerless. They don't even have the will of the people behind them. They have the same people behind them that wanted termination of pregnancy to the 8th month, transgender care for children, open borders, tampons in the boys' bathroom. They wanted the rainbow flag flown in the same spaces with the American flag. These people who are now coming out anti-American, we already knew that their agenda was anti-God, anti-country. Now they're boldly advising you to go against your neighbors and to go against your own elected officials. They're mad because they're so losers. But what would you expect from the Democratic Party, the Dixiecrats, the slave masters, the originators of Jim Crow and the Ku Klux Klan? And they got you out there talking tough as if they're in control of the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, the Marines, Navy SEALs, Secret Service, CIA, FBI, all the police unions in the country. What do you want to happen, Democrats, to your constituents, to your base? You are emboldening your base with false information, making them think that they can stand up to the conservatives? Are you going to create some type of conflict within this country and you're going to run out there with your rainbow flags and face the patriots while they're waving the American flag? Are you going to unite yourself with other subversive organizations in defiance of your government? Do you really want it like that? Because the American people will stand behind the conservatives and agree that y'all have become enemies of the state just based on your rhetoric, just based on how vile and how un-American you are with the things you say. So you got to think about what it is that you really want to happen. I seen a troll in my comments who didn't like what I was saying. And the troll said, he made a veiled threat on the internet. And I'm like, of course you're foolish to make threats on the internet that are not only anti my podcast, anti-government, anti-Christian, anti-Bible, anti-God. And what emboldens you to think that you can get away with that? Do something. See, they don't like what Trump told Zelenskyy because he told him the truth. You can't win. You a tough guy because you have the backing of American citizens and you have been getting money and weapons from us. You have been getting air support from us under Biden. So they want to slander Trump and says, oh, he's a puppet for Putin. How? How? You believe anything coming from mainstream media, even though mainstream media is collapsing under the weight of their lies and their misinformation. You have to think real analytical about what you're saying because you act like it can't happen. You act like you can't get so subversive in your rhetoric that somebody doesn't act on what you say and the government is forced to round all of you up for the safety of the real citizens. See, there are real American citizens and people who are not anti-government. And you are becoming a threat to your neighbors. Your subversiveness is becoming a threat to your neighbors. You remember how they caught the FEMA people who were avoiding the houses that had Trump signs? They were denying hurricane relief and flood relief to people just because of their political ideology. That's the liberals. That's the left. How long do you think people will stand by and let you abuse your power and threaten the American public? How that looks for you to keep thinking you're going to threaten the American citizens. Look at X, which used to be Twitter. Look what the Patriots are saying. They want most of the government that was under the Biden administration arrested. They're calling for their arrest. They're calling for people to be investigated for threats and veiled threats. At some point in time, your rhetoric will drive the situation to a point to where it's too dangerous to not address you. But you want to follow Jasmine Crockett. You want to follow the women that the Democrats put out there in front of you to mislead you. Because in their mind, if you counteract them, you're either racist or misogynistic. But how do you deal with treasonous people? How do you deal with traitors? How do you deal with real enemies of the state in your midst? Think about it. Now I want to do a reaction to Greg Foreman at the Black Conservative. Now I want you to hear his point of view. I like to react to some of the things he says, but I don't agree with everything he says. But one thing that I want to drive home: a lot of you are out there, you playing with fire. You think that you can continue to threaten, insult, and anger people, and there never comes a time for retribution. The liberals who waged lawfare against Trump They're scared of retribution. And they want you to empathize with them, but you're powerless. You lost. You have no power to help no one on a governmental stage. If you were to run election again, they would lose again. The best thing that the Democratic Party did for the conservatives was put Jasmine Crockett in front of people and let you see how uncouthed and unrefined they are. And now they run around saying they ashamed to be Americans. Wow. Without further ado, let's get into the clip.
You know, I gotta give it to you Democrats. You guys will definitely like die on a hill, okay? Because I'm seeing people, oh my God, I'm embarrassed to be an American today. I can't believe what happened in the White House. It was revolting. It was disgusting. It was a shame. But you were proud to be an American when the president couldn't find his way off of a stage. You were proud to be an American when the vice president couldn't even put a sentence together. You had all these other moments to be embarrassed to be an American. Yet you choose the moment when somebody finally stands up and puts our country first, calls out the bullshit from this little embezzler, this little micro midget Oompa Loompa, who comes over here demanding, stomping his little size 2 foot around. Now you're embarrassed to be an American? Please.
What if I told you there's an easier way to get GLP-1 medications? PlushCare offers an online...
Spare me.
Boy. So we got to follow up on the fallout that has happened as a result of probably one of the most historic moments in the Oval Office, which is the brawl, the shouting match that happened between President Trump, J.D. Vance, and Vladimir Zelenskyy, the president of Ukraine, because Vladimir Zelenskyy doesn't really want peace, okay? Or put it this way, he wants peace on unreasonable terms, right? Terms that will never happen. The President of the United States, President Trump, J.D. Vance, tried to explain to him that, listen, you're not going to get your way, right? It's either our way, aka what we want, what's in America's best interest, or no way. Because honestly, what's in America's best interest is what's in Ukraine's best interest. Because without America, hey, Ukraine wouldn't last very long in this war against Russia. And I really want to highlight J.D. Vance because I think that this exchange in the Oval Office may have won J.D. Vance the GOP primary in 2028 because the way that he defended the president, okay, the way that he had the president's back was something that we haven't really seen before, right? Could you imagine if Mike Pence was in that situation? Do you think that Mike Pence would have defended President Trump the same way that J.D. Vance did? Actually, we know for a fact because Mike Pence couldn't even defend President Trump from the Democrats, right? We know damn well he would never defend President Trump from...
And you know, I want to interject. The Democrats are so disloyal amongst themselves that they could never value or see value in a man that demanded loyalty as the first thing he respects in people he interact with. See, the Democrats have no loyalty. None, not even to each other. So when they see this administration loyal to each other and moving in accordance with each other, they don't even understand it. They don't even understand how weak that makes them appear to the world as Democrats. Because they have no loyalty. They're known for betraying each other. But you're seeing something different. So of course, they are telling you they're ashamed and what will they get done? They're going to keep encouraging and keep inciting you to violence until it's time to put the boot to you. Because your threats, you may do that. You may actually be ashamed of being American. You may actually hate your neighbor. I think this administration needs to start taking you guys serious. When you say you hate this country, when you're ashamed and you're going to leave, I think they should take it serious. Because to me, you are a threat to American citizens. no different than the immigrants at this point. Probably worse than the immigrants because you're acting like traitors.
Zelenskyy the same way that J.D. Vance did.
In their lives.
The one thing I think we can agree on is we shouldn't shut down the government over a dispute. And you want to shut it down. You keep talking about it.
The last time, Chuck, you shut it down.
No.
And then you opened
20
it up very
times.
quickly. And
20
I don't
times.
want to do what you did.
20
But,
times you
Chuck,
have called for, I will shut down the government if I don't get my wool. None of us have
you
said.
want to know something?
You've said it.
Okay, you want to put that on
You've
my.
said it.
I'll take it.
Okay, good.
You know what I'll say? Yes. If we don't get what we want, one way or the other, whether it's through you, through a military, through anything you want to call, I will shut down the government.
Okay,
Absolutely.
fair enough.
And I
We
am
disagree.
proud, and I'll
We
tell you what,
disagree.
I am proud to shut down the government for border security, Chuck, because the people of this country don't want criminals and people that have lots of problems and drugs pouring into our countries.
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you are
Mr.
not
President,
strong,
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for
Have you
trying to
ever
bring an
been-
end to this
have you
conflict.
ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems with bringing people into your military?
We have problems.
And do you think that
I
it's
will
respectful
answer.
to come to the Oval Office
I
of
will
the United
answer.
States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You don't
God
know
bless. You
Don't-
will not
you
have
gotta-
war.
Did you hear Zelenskyy with that veiled threat to America? You're siding with a dictator from Ukraine, and most of you can't even point it out on the map, that has the audacity to come to the Oval Office and make a veiled threat toward Americans after you've given him over $350 billion. Say it ain't so. This is not looking good.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because
I'm
you're in no
answering all
position
these
to
questions.
dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly what
this.
I'm not
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
You
We're
will,
going to feel
you
very
will
good.
feel influence.
We're going to feel
I'm
very good and
telling
very
you.
strong.
Furthermore, we want to get paid back, okay? Because the Europeans apparently have a loan set up with Ukraine in which the Europeans are going to get paid back for helping out Ukraine, at least somewhat. But when it comes to the United States, Zelenskyy thinks that the money that we're giving him is free, right? They don't have to pay him back. And he's acting real funny, right? Zelensky's acting real funny when it comes to this.
Zelenskyy is acting as if he knows that a lot of the money he was given was being laundered through Ukraine and going back into the pockets of some Democrats. He acts as if he knows that. You look at people like Jasmine Crockett, who only been in Congress for 2 years and is worth $9 million. $9 million in 2 years. Or AOC, $15 million. And they out in front of you inciting you to go against your own country, your own people, so that they can keep the grift going. This may not turn out how you think, because at this point, you are identifying yourself as treasonous people who will betray their country for foreign nationals. And in the Constitution, that's one of the biggest prohibitions against American people: treason and sedition. Just think about that.
Minerals deal.
President Trump sent me there to, again, we were supposed to bring the Ukrainian people closer to the U.S. people, send a strong signal to Russian leadership that we had the not only shared values, but now shared economic interests, and also have a strong signal for the American people that their tax dollars were actually going to work. Instead, President Zelenskyy.
Now, he said the quiet part out loud, or maybe he don't realize that someone can analyze what he just said. What is America's economic interest in Ukraine? Giving them money and telling him that he doesn't have to pay back like what Biden did. Billions and billions of American taxpayers' dollars. What is the interest that we have in Ukraine? You would like to say democracy. It's not no democracy in Ukraine. Zelenskyy won't even hold an election. As I told you before, they're using conscripts, taking old men and kids and forcing them to get on the front line so that they can, at some point, be empathetic to the globalist. And then now you have World War III. Just like World War I and World War II were financed and stoked by hidden hands. You better really analyze what it is you're seeing. You can't trust mainstream media at all. You're seeing that they're leading you into a situation that you don't want. Just think about it. Guantanamo Bay is now open for business. Gitmo is open for business.
And I had a very tough 45-minute meeting at a very loud decibel level, and I kept telling him, Mr. President, the purpose of this is to show the Russians there is no daylight between us. And at the end of the meeting, he said, well, I'm not signing this. I said, at the end of the meeting, I said to him, what do you want to go out and tell the press? I said, because I don't want to go out and show the Russians that there's daylight in between us. And he said, well, I'm going to go out and say I'll sign it in Munich. Then he got to Munich and he ran into Vice President Vance and Secretary Rubio, very different than Vice President Harris and Secretary Blinken, but he didn't sign the agreement. So finally, we were supposed to have the signing today. It was supposed to be a great day, and this is one of the biggest own goals in diplomatic history.
Yeah, so you see that, you heard that. Apparently Zelenskyy is being funny with the money, right? Because that's ultimately what this is about, okay? At least publicly, he has signaled his support for signing this minerals deal, okay, which would benefit the United States of America, right, economically. And then he gets to the White House and all of a sudden he wants to show his ass, right, which makes me think that this was planned. He planned to come to the White House and to show out in front of the liberal media and the Democrats and the neocons because he knew that they would support him over the United States of America.
And why wouldn't he show out? Other countries watch American media. They watch your politicians. Just think, Zelenskyy and other presidents of other countries sitting back, looking at Americans' news and looking at people like Jasmine Crockett, Ayanna Pressley. They looking at that and say, what do America think they are? Wakanda? They think they're Wakanda? With their women kings? Trying to dictate policy to China, the Middle East, Russia, knowing they wouldn't throw rice at a wedding. They're setting you up for your sons and daughters to be fighting battles and wars in the future, all so they can maintain political grift. You're being lied to. Pay attention.
Okay, that's how treasonous these people are, right? So it seems as if this is backfired because now, according to the Washington Post, there are tears and shock in Ukraine and Europe after heated Zelenskyy-Trump meeting. Quote, I'm just crying because of what I hear, one Ukrainian lawmaker said of the media, echoing the dismayed reactions of others in Europe. Yeah, so they're boo-hoo-whining ground about this, right? And you know it's bad, right? You know it's really bad when you have neocons like Lindsey Graham coming out and saying, yeah, Zelenskyy, he lost me with this meeting.
Complete, utter disaster. I've been to Ukraine 8 or 9 times since the war started. I understand the consequences of Putin's actions against Ukraine. I appreciate what the Ukrainian people have done. They fought like tigers. At the end of the day, I was hoping that this minerals deal, which would be transformative in the relationship, would go over well. I talked to Zelenskyy this morning. Don't take the bait. President Trump was in a very good mood last night. Somebody asked me, am I embarrassed about Trump? I have never been more proud of the president. I was very proud of J.D. Vance, standing up for our country. We want to be helpful. What I saw in the Oval Office was disrespectful, and I don't know if we can ever do business with Zelenskyy again. I think most Americans saw a guy that they would not want to go in business with. The way he handled the meeting, the way he confronted the president was just over the top. So I think the relationship between Ukraine and America is important, vitally important. But can Zelenskyy do a deal with the United States? After what I saw, I don't know.
Yeah, so I think that
I'm gonna stop with Lindsey Graham, because even Lindsey Graham, who is a staunch opponent most times to Trump, sees what anybody with good sense sees. Here is a man fighting a war he know he can't win, sacrificing the countless lives of his own people, missing $100 billion of funds. Then he comes to the person and the people that loaned him the money and makes demands as if he has power. The only power I think he has is the power to whistleblow on the Biden administration. That's what has emboldened him, in my humble opinion. Well, this is Detroit's HPTV coming to you on this Saturday morning. Like, share, and subscribe. Support the channel. Of course, it's being shadow banned and censored. You know what I mean? I guess a lot of conservative channels will be that way for a minute until it's time to deal with the people who are violating our First Amendment right to freedom of speech and a press. So, as always, salute to all patriots. Keep your head on the swivel. Don't believe the hype.